What's happening, podcast fans? It's Ivan Rodriguez. Welcome to another episode of the Cycleshack podcast. Check out the show, the Cycleshack podcast at gmail.com, or check us out on Facebook at the Cycleshack podcast. You can check out the show anywhere where podcasts are available, iTunes, but our host platform, and I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Anchor.fm, the only way to podcast. What's up, guys? It's February 20th, 2019. It's 9:39 p.m. Wednesday on a cold, stormy night in upstate New York. You know what's messed up? That I broadcasted a broadcast on Facebook, or I filmed a quick little commercial skit for Facebook on my equipment here. Did a lot of updating, did a lot of software updates, and again, as usual, nothing goes as planned. And I don't know what happened with Facebook. Facebook had an update. And on the page that I manage is the Cycleshack. I have your personal page because you have to start a page with your personal page. Then you have to go to create a page and create a page for whatever you got, a business. And in my case, it's a podcast. So you're allowed to post, stream, whatever. It's like a regular secondary page. So Facebook did an update, and apparently they did not include the post bar. So I couldn't post. I couldn't post anything. I couldn't type anything. I couldn't even put video. What's up with that, Facebook? So I go to my personal page, and I'm able to do it there. So I uploaded the quick commercial skit on my personal page. I announced that I'm going live on twitch.tv, which we're on right now. Thank you to twitch.tv. And I don't understand. I had to go to my personal page to then share it, but I can't even share the video from my personal page to the page that I manage, which is this one. And really? It is what it is. So what's up, everybody? We're back. It's a cold, stormy night in the Hudson Valley. Check out the email, the Cycleshackpodcast at gmail.com. Go to Facebook at the Cycleshack Podcast. Hopefully I'll be able to communicate with you through there. Click the link on the Facebook page. It'll take you to the web page. And on the web page, I will have on the blog section video of what we're broadcasting right now on twitch.tv. We're live on twitch.tv right now, and after the show's over, it gets thrown right into the YouTube page. So search us anywhere on the Cycleshack podcast, and you can check it out. Again, this is not for video. There's really nothing to see. I just do this as another method for people to listen to the show if they feel like listening to it that way. Some people do, etc., etc. So it's a cold, stormy night. All right, iTunes is rocking, so we're good. And technical difficulties, man. It's unbelievable. Hopefully I can work through them, right? So first off, I want to say that I want to give a quick shout out to two fans of the show. Roberto Fuentes, what's happening, man? And Mr. Mark Arnold of Nebraska. Roberto, I don't know where you're from, man. I don't know if you're from Texas or Los Angeles. I couldn't tell, man. I looked at your page. I'm sorry for that. So reply back to me, dude. Where you from, Roberto? Thanks for listening to the show, watching the show, whatever platform it is, man. I appreciate you, definitely. Same thing, Mark, man. Mark of Nebraska. We had opened up a quick dialogue there, and I just wanted to share some things. Roberto pointed out, yo, man, what's up? You started a conversation, you never finished it. I wanted to know, why shouldn't I run my bike in the cold? Why can't I cold start my bike? And I cut that off the conversation last week. And I apologize for that, you see. I flap my gums and I just forget and skip around, and it is what it is. But we're back with it, and I'll go over that. Why shouldn't you start your bike in the cold winter climate? So I got some stuff to read. I mean, you could do whatever you want, of course, but it's just a recommendation as to why you shouldn't. And Roberto Fuentes, shout out to you, man. He pointed that out. Didn't finish my story, so we'll finish it today and we'll talk about it. And Mark Arnold, he kind of gave me a story as to why he prefers using synthetic oil, which was the topic that we spoke about last week, and the synthetic oil of preference that he has, which is AMSOIL. And he's got a quick little story behind it. Well, you know what? Let me share Mark Arnold's quick story. So he put down, he goes, hey, Ivan, just catching up with the podcast and finishing listening to episode 41. I'm a fairly new listener, and I'm enjoying the content so far. Sounds like you got your oil picked. Well, not really, but I just don't want to spend the money. It's not that I'm cheap. I just come from the mentality of, I go crazy spending all this money, and I change the oil very, very frequently. So it's, I don't know. But again, like I said, different strokes for different folks. So he goes on to say, most oils are great as long as they meet the specs set out by Harley Davidson. I agree. Mobil 1 is decent stuff. I've been using AMSOIL for 11 years on my Harleys and love it. I just like the science and the extended reliability with the synthetics. But I put an average of about 20,400 miles a season. I'm not affiliated with AMSOIL, nor do I sell it. I've got 81,000 miles on my 2015 FLH XS and had 44,000 on my '08 Electroglide. Although I've been using it for years, I was sold on it last year when I took a 5,000-mile trip from Canada home to Nebraska and back, with many stops on the way. All right, Mark, I'm confused. Are you from Canada or Nebraska? But anyway, I was on my way home on my second to last day. It was 86 degrees. I pulled into town to stop for gas. I noticed my bike was really making a rattling noise at idle. After I got to the hotel across the street, I started checking my bike over and found that the engine dipstick was bone dry. I'd already put on about 450 miles that day on my bike, and it was running great, other than the noise. I've changed out the oil pressure sensor because the damn light never came on. I probably didn't hear the ticking earlier due to my stereo, my exhaust, and being on the highway most of the time. As far as I can tell, the seal between the engine and the primary failed, and most of my crankcase oil ended up in the primary. I've talked to some dealer techs who said that it can happen on occasion. Main point of the story is that my engine didn't seize after riding on the highway for who knows how long with minimal oil. That's why AMSOIL works for me. Anyway, keep up the great content. Hopefully the snow will be gone soon. Yeah, I hope so, man. It's snowing nice right now. Mark, thank you, man, for those comments, and keep them coming. I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate the feedback. And, Mark, you're right, man. Like I told you when I replied back, use what's good for you. Only you know your bike. You could try a different variety of oils, and you'll know what your bike responds to, how it feels, what it sounds like. Because I've had guys that use synthetics on the engine. Use synthetics in the gearbox, in the tranny. And there's a lot of rattling when they shift. The shifter tends to shift too easy and not so smooth. It's a rough shift as opposed to a smooth shift, so they go back to their oil of preference. Again, you do what works for you. I guess it has to do with what the bike is born with, which is normally Harley-Davidson oil. I think they come with Syn 3. I can't even say that. I don't think they come with Syn 3 from the factory. I think they come with the standard Harley oil, the regular dinosaur oil, natural oil, and then people switch over to Syn 3. I personally don't like using Syn 3 only because I've done a little research on it and have seen a lot of complaints on it. And when I tried using it myself, I wasn't satisfied with the results. The bike ran a little bit warmer with it for some reason. I tried using it on all three, the engine, the transmission, and the primary. The primary I'd be careful with, man. Like I said, I would agree, put a good synthetic on that primary only because you want to protect the chain tensor pad on that primary. And I will say on the engine, if you'd like to go with a good synthetic, great. Only because of the same reason. Inside the cam, what's going on here? Got a little bit of technical difficulties. What is up? My computer's going crazy. Anyway, inside the crankcase where the oil, the cams and all that, the cam chain tensioner is a sort of like a plasticky material. And again, a good synthetic will keep that chain sliding over it and keep the tension correct on it. The twin cam 88s had a big problem with those because the tensioner was a spring load tensioner instead of a hydraulic tensioner. The 96, twin cam 96, somewhat were better, but they had a problem with those pads wearing out, and those pads would break up and get into the oil pump and cause a number of problems, et cetera, et cetera. So again, a good synthetic will protect your bike. I'm not denying that. But I mean, again, I don't, as much as I like to ride, I try to get out on the road as much as I can. I've had some seasons where I do a lot of riding, and if I do 10,000 miles a season, that's a lot for me because, again, I work. I try to get out riding as much as I can. Summer is the busy season for me at work, so it's kind of hard to get out and et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, like I said, man, different strokes for different folks. Use what works for you. And there are some guys like me that don't get, to ride as much as they like, but they throw synthetic in their bike anyway. And that's cool. You know what I mean? There's no right or wrong in this. Again, you will decide what's right for your bike. By the way it sounds, the way it feels, the way it's performing. If you're satisfied with the way it's performing, great. So Mark Arnold, thank you very much, man. Shout out to you. Keep it coming. And we're going to get back to Roberto and the question he had as to that I didn't finish. Why shouldn't you start your bike in cold winter climates? I had a bunch of subjects to talk about today, and that's what I went over on the quick commercial skit. But I think I'm going to cut it short because it's so late in the evening. And I'm already about 10 minutes, 11 minutes into this podcast. We'll keep it going and see where we're at. All right, we're checking out. We got multiple feeds running here, and we're just making sure that we're still online. And we're still live on twitch.tv. If you're watching on twitch.tv, thanks for watching. I appreciate you. It's the Cycleshack Podcast, the show that talks about motorcycles and more. And, of course, we tend to stray away and talk about more. So why shouldn't you start your bike in cold winter climates? And, again, you can do what you want. This is one reason why you shouldn't. And I did some research on this just to get some more proper wording, the right way to say this to the audience in general. And I want to thank Ryan Erlacher, lawabidingbiker.com, Law Abiding Biker Media. He also has his own podcast called the Law Abiding Biker Podcast. You can check him out. Ryan Erlacher, he's on iTunes, and you could basically from his website, lawabidingbiker.com, check him out, and it points you to the blogs, the videos, etc. He's got some great information. He's a good source of information. Again, Ryan Erlacher, he's a police officer, and of course, he's a motorhead. He's a motorcyclist, and he tends to put out videos, how-to videos on how to make repairs. So check him out. That's where I get a lot of my resource from. And, again, all the information that I share with you guys, I research on his page. His page is so thorough that he's a good resource for me to look up certain things. And this was one of them because he basically puts it from a good perspective. So check it out. This is from, he did a show on this, show number 130. Should you start or idle your motorcycle during cold winter weather? So I'm going to quote this from Law Abiding Biker and Ryan Erlacher. Again, thank you for this information. And we're just passing it on. And a lot of people would say, well, dude, why are you promoting someone else's podcast on your podcast? It's not competition, man. Podcasters stick together. We tend to promote each other's shows and information. It's we do this. Some of us do this for a little bit of money. So like, this show brings minimal funds back to kick back into the production of the show. And again, it's just, this is more of a hobby for me. And again, I like, it's a good resource. It's a good source of information. So why not share it? So anyway, Ryan goes on to say, in the episode, they break down the old myth. Should you go out during the winter every so often to start your motorcycle and let it idle for a bit to warm up? Many think this will keep things lubricated, and it's a good thing for the motor to do this. Heck, I used to do it myself. That's what my father did when cars were sitting. I got to say the same thing. Especially when I had my metric bikes. I'm not going to say trap bikes because that's not a politically correct thing to say, right? My metric bikes, my Suzuki, my Honda, my Yamaha, my Kawasaki, I used to do the same thing. I used to go out in the wintertime and say, man, I haven't started this thing in like 2 weeks. Let me fire it up. Boom! I fire it up, let it run till it's hot. That engine's baking, and that's a good thing. It warmed up, and I shut it down. That's a bad thing, and I'll tell you why. This particular This particular subject came up. I'm going to skip on to this. Many bikers can't ride during certain snow months and head out into the old garage, fire up their motorcycle, drink a beer, maybe have a cigar, and let their bike run for 15 to 20 minutes. They shut their bike down and head back into the house. Is this a good practice? Now, it says here, and I'm quoting, "You're better off just letting your motorcycle sit until you're actually going to ride it for a fair distance." You see, idling your motorcycle in the cold not only wastes fuel, but it's also stripping your oil from critical components that help your engine run, namely cylinders and pistons. Normally, your motorcycle engine runs on a mixture of air and vaporized fuel. When that mixture enters a cylinder, a piston compresses it, which generates a combustion event powering the engine. When it's cold outside, the gasoline is less likely to evaporate. Your motorcycle purposely runs rich and compensates for this initially by adding more gasoline to the air vapor mixture. That's a problem. You're actually putting extra fuel into the combustion chamber, making it burn, and some of it can get into the cylinder walls. Gasoline is a great solvent, and it can actually wash off the walls if you run your motor in those cold, idle conditions for an extended period of time. Over time, that can have a detrimental effect on the lubrication and life of things like piston rings and cylinder liners. This can have a serious effect on overall operating life of your engine. Myth busted. Idling your motorcycle does not prolong the life of your engine. Rather, it shortens it. Your motorcycle doesn't run rich the entire winter. It only happens when the gasoline is cold. Once your engine warms up to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, a car transfers to normal fuel consumption rates. I got confused here. Your motorcycle doesn't run rich the entire winter. It only happens when the gasoline is cold. Once your engine warms up to about 40 degrees, the car transfers to normal fuel consumption, whatever. You might think by idling your motorcycle, you're warming it up, which will prevent this problem. Idling doesn't really get the engine up to temperature until it happens, and until that happens, the engine control module on the engine is going to keep sending rich fuel mixture to the cylinders so it can ensure that enough is evaporated for a consistent combustion event. The only best way to really get your motorcycle's engine temperature up is to actually go out and ride. So now you sitting on your bike and taking it out for a riding for 20, 30 minutes, that's putting a load on your engine. It's putting the proper load on your engine. It's doing what the engine is supposed to do. Carry a load for X amount of time. When you're just idling your bike, you're not doing anything. Your bike is not under a load. When you ride in the colder temperatures, letting your motor run for about 30 seconds to a minute is a good standard before you take off. Once you take off, don't just immediately open up the throttle and rip into it. Ride gently for a bit to give it time to warm up, or you'll put unnecessary stress on your engine. It can take 5 to 15 minutes for your engine to warm up, depending on the driving conditions. Also, because your motorcycle is going to run a bit rich before the engine reaches 40 degrees Fahrenheit, you're going to get lower gas mileage than usual. So, another thing is, so the gasoline is too rich and it's going to wash down your cylinder walls. So you get less lubrication. You're going to wash that lubrication off the cylinder walls. I just totally just shut my notes down. I don't know why, but I'm all messed up today. So another thing is, you fire your bike. Okay, like me, I keep my bikes outdoors. Now, they're not just outdoors in the cover. They're outdoors. They're covered. They're on a battery tender. They're in a shelter. I have one of those, what they call, you can look them up online, Shelter Logic. It's a tubular steel barn-style tent with a zipper lining, and it's just like a giant thick tarp shaped as a barn. So it protects from the rain, it protects from everything. It protects from the elements except cold and extreme heat. In the summertime, I park the bike in. I use it like a garage. I leave the door open, and I park in and out, and it just serves as shelter for the bike so that it doesn't get wet when it rains in the summer months, in the spring and fall, and what have you. You get the drift. So what happens in the winter months is if I go out, okay, and it's, let's say like today, it's like 20 degrees out right now. I haven't ran the bike in a month. You know what? Let me take the tender off and fire the bike up. I fire the bike up, and it's running. It's running for about 15, 20 minutes. I go do whatever, shovel some snow and look around, tinker with this, tinker with that. I come back 20 minutes later, vroom, vroom. Yeah, warmed up real nice. I feel the cylinders, it warmed up. And the time that it took that freezing cold engine to warm up, there was condensation happening in that engine. It went from extreme cold to now warming up. So you built up condensation, which is moisture in that engine that's now mixing with your oil. On top of that, your fuel mixture. It's now electronic fuel injection in most of these bikes. Your fuel mixture is now running rich. So you got a lot of fuel dumping into that cylinder for combustion, which is scraping the walls of the piston, cleaning them dry from the precious oil that you need up until a certain point. So that's bad. Then you get that engine nice and warm, right? You shut it off, shut everything down. I go back inside. It's still 20 degrees out. So the engine's going from 100 and something degrees, sitting in 20-degree weather, and it's super cooling down. What's happening? Moisture is now building up in that engine. So I'm going to get a little bit of rust happening. I'm building up moisture, condensation, moisture, water that's going to mix with that oil. A little bit of rust can develop. You get my drift? It's a problem. So you don't want to do that. Also, that moisture that mixes with your oil, your hot oil, it creates, and I don't know this to be 100% true, but it ain't going to hurt to just listen and heed the warning. It builds up with the carbon and the moisture. It builds up like sort of like an acidic type of chemical in the oil, which is why they tell you should put fresh oil once you store your bike, get the oil changed, and then store it. Don't store it with the same old oil because it's got a lot of carbon in it. It's a little dirty, and it builds up sort of like an acidic type of component to it, which could be bad for the sump area, etc. But, yeah, it's going from extreme cold to then hot to then you shut it down. It's going back to that extreme cold, so you're building up moisture from the inside, which promotes wear and tear and rust. So why would you do that? Now, there are those who say, well, I got mine in the garage. Well, is your garage heated? That's number one, okay? You want to maintain at least 40 degrees in your garage. At least. You want it at least 40 to 45 degrees. You want it well above freezing, just enough to get the chill out, okay? And remember, a lot of guys that ride probably smoke cigars, drink beer. They open up the garage to take the snowblower out. You know, they open up the garage to walk out, and then the garage stays open for 5-10 minutes. The automatic closer comes and closes. So every time you open that garage door and close it, guess what happens? That cold is sweeping in, okay? So is your garage really heated at that point? Do you really have a heated garage? If you're constantly opening and closing it, you're letting the warm air out, cold air in. They say if you do store your bike in an active garage, you should take the bike and elevate it off the garage floor at least almost waist high, thigh high, just to break that chill from the ground, because most of the chill stays on the ground. So, I mean, again, why not just heed the warnings and don't start your bike? I have yet to turn my bike on since I shut it down. I want to say sometime in November I stopped riding, late November, just before Thanksgiving, and I have not turned on my bike. I will not turn on my bike. I will not turn on my bike, take it out and turn it on till the weather spikes up and I'm going to start riding it. I think I'm going to turn it on sometime in mid-March. Mid-March is usually when I go and take it over to Harley. I need a front tire, so I'll probably get a tire replaced. That's when I ride it, whether it's cold or not, but I know I'm going to be riding the bike for at least 20 to 30 minutes to ride to my local Harley dealer and get it serviced. So I'm not doing any harm to the bike. I'm putting it under the load that it needs to remove that moisture from the engine, to get that condensation out. So, again, Roberto, that's the reason why you don't want to start your bike in cold climate and warm it up thinking you're doing something good, because you're really not. So, again, small price to pay. A lot of people may say, by the time that happens, I've sold the bike. But some people stay with their bikes. If you're doing more harm than good, why do it? So there you have it. Why you shouldn't start your bike in cold winter climates. Two Wheels TV, Netflix for motorcycling, streaming network to be launched. I'm going to jump on that bandwagon next. This little quick article is from ultimatemotorcycling.com. And Two Wheels TV, Netflix for motorcycling, streaming network to now launch. Two Wheels TV is set for a spring launch. Motorcycle enthusiasts can never get enough two-wheel action on television, regardless if they're seeking MotoGP or Supercross racing, or commentary from thought leaders within the industry. Most resort to YouTube. I know I do. But as far as a place to go for all motorcycle-related content, the pickings are slim. You can go to Cycleshack Podcast. I'm kidding. It's not always all motorcycles. This is about to change in the spring. Though as Two Wheels TV is set for a soft launch, the new over-the-top OTT streaming network is dedicated entirely to motorcycles. Two Wheels TV will deliver live motorcycle racing that's streamed from all over the world, plus an on-demand library of movies, shows, race archives, and other exclusive motorcycling programs. The soft launch is for iOS and Android devices. Register at twowheelstv.com. The full launch is expected in April, and TWTV will be sponsored by Google Chromecast, Apple TV, will be supported, by Google Chromecast, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Two Wheels TV will be available on an annual and monthly subscription basis. Pay-per-view pricing for some live racing is also expected. So it is a paid-for service. I'm sure there'll be some free content on it. It'll be minimal, of course. Again, you must pay for that. Two Wheels TV gets off to a fast start in Chicago at the Progressive IMS show with the help of XDL Street Bike Freestyle Championship. Its Street Jam program will include the official launch of Two Wheels TV, along with the announcement of the XDL channel, the first official destination on Two Wheels TV. So, who knows? This might be something pretty good. If the subscription price is right, who knows? More people will get into it and watch it, etc. Two Wheels TV, spring launch. We'll see how that goes. So, the AFF Football League, Week 2. Got some quick results. I didn't watch a lot of these games. Like I said, there's a lot of good hard-hitting action. If you don't like or you're tired of kind of like all the BS with NFL, the crazy calls, the stupidity, this stuff, it's related to college football somewhat. It's that, like I said last week, it's that buffer. It's professional football league. It's like the prep leagues for the NFL, because it is pro football. And it gets you ready. You know, I've always, again, like I said last week, I always thought that the step from college football to NFL was a pretty big step. It's a lot harder hitting in the NFL than there is in college. These boys are big, and they're strong. And I've always felt that there should be an in-between. Well, this is that in-between. It's professional football. You're earning a salary, but until they call you up to the show, you'll be playing here. So this week, The Birmingham Iron swept Salt Lake City Stallions 12-9. The Arizona Hotshots knocked out Memphis Express 20-18. Probably be watching the replay of these games. I couldn't check them, so I just got the stats. So check them out. It's AAF football. It's on CBS. You can catch the games. You can even watch the full games on YouTube. So apparently, this is according to RevZilla.com. It looks like, this is by Lance Oliver of RevZilla.com. Focus on cruisers hurts Harley and Indian as sales continue to slide. So apparently Indian and Harley, not only Harley, it's Indian who's starting to suffer a little bit. Just to get into it for a bit. For years, the major U.S. motorcycle manufacturers built nothing but heavyweight cruisers and traditionally styled V-twin touring bikes. Now that those motorcycles are increasingly out of favor, Harley-Davidson and Indian are paying the price, both literally and figuratively. As part of its earnings report issued today, this was issued January 29th this year, Harley-Davidson said U.S. motorcycle sales were down 10.2% in 2018 and down 6.1% worldwide. Numbers were also soft in the fourth quarter, with U.S. sales down 10.1% and the international sales down 2.6%. Harley-Davidson's fourth quarter profited less than $500,000 compared to $8.3 million a year ago. This picture is a little different at Polaris, but still does not show encouraging growth. Motorcycle segment sales were down 15% in the fourth quarter, but that was mostly due to a steep drop in sales of the Slingshot three-wheeler. Indian sales increased slightly, and Indian gained market share in the 900cc and up segment as overall sales of big bikes declined by double digits. So I'm going to stop. Well, I'm going to stop there. But again, this goes back to, I won't say millennials. I hate using that term. But today's youth are not into the baggers and the big bikes. And I want to say also that, even though these bike companies are suffering from the tariffs, it's not just that. You can't blame government and the tariffs only. The problem is that, not for nothing, with the economy the way it is, people are afraid to spend. And to just blow $20,000 on a motorcycle to tinker around town seems steep for these kids. And you got to give them something better. You got to give them a dose of the old bigger and better deal. A lot of them just want to dump $5, $6, $7,000 on a little Yamaha to buzz around town or fool around with friends or to go here and there. It's a cheap commute. They're not looking to pay $20,000, $30,000 to commit to a bagger. Hopefully we can grab the attention of these same bikers when they're in their late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. But until then, right now, these sales are going to keep slumping until Harley and Indian decide to make something a bit cheaper. I know Indian was on the right track, but they're still not quite there. Harley's definitely not there, especially releasing the Livewire, an electric motorcycle that's supposed to give kids a break. It's not giving anybody a break. For $30,000, a battery-operated toy, I don't think so. Okay? Indian, they've got the Scout. The Scout's not a small enough bike. 900cc, no problem. But at the price tag it still holds, it's still not affordable motorcycling. It really isn't. I'm not hating on them. I want to hate Indian, but I can't. They're doing it right. They're a step above Harley in the way they're trying to grab the attention of the public, and they almost were. But they're suffering the same. They're suffering from the same thing. They're just not appealing to that younger generation, and they've got to come up with something fast. I say they because I want them both. I want there to be a Harley and an Indian. We need that competition going. okay? Especially amongst us in the U.S. here. We need that competition. It can't be just Harley. It can't be just one. It can't be just Indian. I wish Victory was still around because it would have added another taste to the whole. It would have added flavor to the flair to the whole American motorcycle scene, and that's what the U.S. is lacking. These U.S. market motorcycles. So let's see what remains to happen. Speaking of Harley, this is from rideapart.com. And a buddy of mine, John, I want to thank him for sending me. Well, not sending me. I saw it on his Facebook page, and I said, I'm putting this on the podcast, and I snatched it up. Ford F-150 Harley-Davidson edition is officially back. You could check all this stuff out on the podcast, Apple Podcasts, on iTunes or even Anchor.fm. I always post these notes that I read from with the links to the pages that you can read them from, so you can check them out there. So if you want any of this information, you can go ahead and check it out on Anchor.fm or on iTunes on the show notes. Excuse me. This is by Sabrina Giacomini. I hope I pronounced that right. The blue oval and orange and black team up once more. Harley-Davidson and Ford. Man, what's wrong with me? Let's try this again. Harley-Davidson and Ford have a long history of combining their efforts to come up with the most American truck in existence. The F-150 Harley-Davidson edition. The two manufacturers unveiled the result of their very first collaboration in 1999, and this year marks its all-American corporate love story's 20th anniversary to highlight the special anniversary. A 2019 edition of the F-150 HD truck seems like an appropriate gift to unwrap. If for some reason you agree with them, I think it's a good idea. Be warned, you better get ready to cough up the money. Uh-oh. Oh, boy. Here we go. Get ready to fork over the dollars. The special edition truck isn't actually new news. In fact, last August, Harley celebrated its 115th anniversary, and a milestone very few companies can brag to have reached. For the occasion, the Milwaukee company did what it does best, put its colors and badges on everything, including a brand spanking new Ford F-150. The F-150 HD edition was designed as concept offered to the Harley-Davidson Museum to be put on display. It didn't remain a museum exclusive for very long, since ahead of the Chicago Auto Show, Ford and Harley. What the heck am I doing? Anyway, the model unveiled Tuesday night as a carbon copy of the museum piece. Prepared by the custom shop Tuscany Motor Company, the truck will be offered in a choice of 3 colors. Agate black version is offered. What the heck? Black, $97,415. The white platinum, $97,710. While the special order Leadfoot livery comes in a $98,433. Are they out of their mind? Who's going to pay almost $100,000 for a Harley-Davidson pickup truck? The story doesn't tell what trim level special editions are built on, but at this price point, we're hoping at least for platinum or limited. Oh my God. While they look nice on these photos, I'm sorry, I'm not paying $100,000 for a pickup truck that just has Harley-Davidson badges all over the leather and all over the doors. I mean, I could buy a standard F-150 and buy everything HD and probably get the seats custom trimmed out with custom leather covers with Harley-Davidson badges all over them and still probably pay a cheaper price. Man, I'm not hating. I don't mean to hate, but This is ridiculous. Well, hey, if you got it, whatever. But $98,000 for an F-150 Harley Davidson truck, they can keep it. At least in my opinion. Oh man, that's awesome. So, I don't know about you, but I love binge watching on Netflix, especially on cold days. I'm kind of running out of shows. There's a couple of shows that I do want to check out. There was one in particular that I just finished watching not too long ago, season 2 of The Punisher. And apparently, unfortunately, The Punisher is now canceled by Netflix after 2 seasons. This is by comicbook.com, Adam Bernhardt, February 18th. It goes on to say The Punisher canceled by Netflix after 2 seasons. Excuse me. So Netflix has decided to pull the plug on The Punisher, sending Jon Bernthal, starring the show, to the chopping block after 2 seasons of streaming on the streaming giant. According to a report by Deadline, The Punisher is set to become the 4th victim of the war waging between Netflix and Disney, as the latter gets ready to launch its own streaming platform later this year. So I guess Disney's coming out with its own streaming platform, and since they own Marvel now, they're pulling all the Marvel shows from Netflix. Fans for Netflix Defenderverse shows the news isn't entirely unexpected after Disney CEO Bob Iger previously confirmed limited series featuring Marvel characters would in fact appear on Disney. Most assumed it was a matter of time before the House of Mouse worked on getting all of their properties back under the umbrella. With the cancellation of The Punisher now official, that leaves Jessica Jones as the lone Marvel property of the streaming giant, as it still has yet to debut its 3rd season. Now, I don't know. Now that show joins the likes of Daredevil, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage on the pile of show cancellations. I can only assume that it's going to go. I love that series. That show's awesome. Jon Bernthal played an awesome Punisher. I wasn't sold up until I saw the first. You know what? I wasn't sold when I heard he was going to play the Punisher in the Daredevil series. I think it was season 2 or 3 of Daredevil. But when I saw him in action, man, that prison scene, you guys know what I'm talking about if you're fans of the shows. There's a prison scene when he's fighting all the prisoners coming at him in that long, narrow hallway of the prison. Awesome scene. And it just got better and better from there with Punisher season 1, and Punisher season 2 was crazy. I gotta say here that one of the writers, it says here, Steve Lightfoot, was one of the writers, and he was actually involved in writing a season 3. So it's not completely gone. So the problem is, what's going to happen? It was a great show. We know that once Disney launches their own platform like Netflix, they can't create the same show. They might be able to use the same actors, or actor in this case, but they can't create the same show because that was done by Netflix Studios. So it was technically a Netflix-created show, even though it was owned by Disney. So I think the Punisher character, the way we saw him, is kind of ruined. I don't think Disney would want to bring it back. It was a pretty violent show. I don't even think Disney's going to want to be associated with that. I don't know. But Disney has been known to not cater to violence and all that other stuff. Not that you blame them, but Why buy Marvel if, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. They bought the rights to Marvel and Marvel Studio Creations, and a lot of that stuff was kind of violent. Had a lot of blood and guts on especially The Punisher, man. That was a crazy show. So what are you going to do? Just hang it up? That ain't cool. So that remains to be seen. That's all I got. I'm Ivan Rodriguez. Check out the Cycleshack podcast at thecycleshackpodcast at gmail.com. Send me information. Send me whatever you want. Check out the Cycleshack podcast on Facebook at the Cycleshack podcast. You can click on the link on the Facebook page to the website, which will take you to the blog. I post these videos up on the blog page as well as articles, etc. For things that I just happen to want to blurb about. And you can check this out on twitch.tv. We're live right now on twitch.tv. Thanks, twitch.tv. And later on, the show tonight is going to be available on YouTube, on the YouTube page. Just search the Cycleshack podcast on YouTube and you'll catch it there. We're on iTunes. Check us out on iTunes. And we're on our number one host platform for this podcast, Anchor.fm. So check them out, Anchor.fm. It's the only way to podcast. Go to Anchor.fm and listen to your favorite podcast anytime. Thank you again. I'm Ivan Rodriguez. This is the Cycleshack podcast. Thanks for joining me. We'll catch you next time. We'll have more information as we talk about motorcycles and more on the Cycleshack podcast. Thanks, folks.